Hi guys, thanks for coming back and joining me for another video. So just for you newbies, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you like the video, please remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you actually get alerts from when I post videos. A lot of my long-time followers will know that my videos can be a bit sporadic. I don't have set days when I release them, mainly because it's news related, but also because, you know, I have a life and I do studies and various other things that happen in my life, including two very, very demanding princesses, my doggies. So before I start the video, let's talk about a couple of minor corrections. Firstly, because I was talking about the state funeral, which happened on Monday, I did not mention the courageous other 8 lads that are actually from the Royal Scottish Regiment, and they were the ones that carried the Queen's coffin from Balmoral and into the city centre in the church service. So I want to obviously tip my hat, as it were, to those fine young gentlemen that also played their part in history. A little correction from yesterday's video is obviously, which many of you called me out on, was Her Majesty's horse was not called Katie, she was called Emma, and I knew that, but I couldn't work out where I'd drawn that name from. And I went through my internet history, and not long before I started filming, I had been looking up Her Majesty's horses, and one of the women who actually has shown Her Majesty's horses, and she's also written for Horse and Hound, was called Katie Jerram Hannibal. So there you go, mystery solved. I'm not quite losing it just yet. So the title of this video, the media games have begun. Let's be honest, they never stopped. Even though this awful tragedy happened, there were still definitely games being played. Some of it you can't blame Harry and Meghan for, because I do believe the media are stirring the pot because it works for them as clickbait. But I definitely have this gut instinct that Harry and Meghan have been involved with certain leaks that have come out using their favourite mouthpiece, Omid Scobie, as well, which I will get on and discuss. Now, the reason why I say there's definitely media games being played, because I'm sure most of you that have been reading or keeping up with everything since the Queen's passing have seen these headlines. Harry heartbroken, Harry humiliated as his uniform was ripped of his grandmother's initials just before the funeral. Harry and Meghan denied seating at the funeral. Harry and Meghan have been excluded. Harry and Meghan have been uninvited. Yeah, all of those things have been coming out in the newspapers and across social media, and it is sticking with that whole victim narrative. No matter what decisions were made, no matter how much Harry and Meghan were included, given everything that they have done over the last couple of years, there was always a negative story to counteract it. Whilst the couple have now gone back to Montecito to finally be reunited with their children, they might have to tear Archie away from the palm trees in the garden called Mama and Papa. It would seem that it's not going to quieten down anytime soon, because the onslaught of articles has already commenced. Now, one thing is strange that was picked up on Twitter by several people, and I will include it here, is to do with a very large number of tweets that are coming from all different people, all different countries, all walks of life, that are identical. Take Slim here. Meghan Markle has carried herself sensationally the last week. She has supported her husband beautifully and has shown much respect to a country who has treated her so badly. We really messed up when we lost them as royals. Now let's hear from James. At least he spelt Meghan Markle right. Has carried herself sensationally the last week. Sound familiar? Yes, that's because it's identical. What about Andre, who happened to have 35,000 likes for the exact same comment? How about Hannah? She was slightly more inventive and started it off ever so slightly different, but otherwise every single word, even the emoji used, is exactly the same. Then you've got Forrest here and the Daily Commenter, and these are just a few of the people that I have seen and I got people to tag me in. This has been happening non-stop since the Queen died. Now, there are rumours, and as you can see here, I know this is not the best media outlet to use as a reliable source, but they do sometimes have things that turn out to be true, and that is Sunshine Sachs, Meghan and Harry's preferred PR company, have reportedly dumped them. This was released on a blind as well, so you've got to take everything with a little pinch of salt, but I am beginning to believe tactics have changed. The reason why they parted ways and were quoted by someone saying parted ways with the exiled royals, ouch, was due to the fact that Meghan had reportedly not been paying her bills and they were racking up. They're very expensive, these sort of companies that especially like damage control. They are trying to rescue and salvage Meghan and Harry's falling star. It's not falling, that's a rocket heading towards the centre of Earth. It would seem that they got so frustrated that when Meghan finally got her payout from Spotify after eventually releasing Archetypes with the help of Harpo production staff, I still think that Oprah might be managing Meghan to a degree. But basically, once they got the payout from Meghan, they then decided to cut ties with her. That's what you do, isn't it? If you've been waiting for a customer to pay their debt and you want to get rid of them, you wait till they pay their debt and then you go, toodaloo, bye-bye. So it would make sense that they are now using these bot farm style attacks to change the narrative. For those of you that don't know what bot farms are, here's a photograph. I've been accused of running these before, which is absolutely bizarre. But it's, you know, you have these massive phones that are normally being hooked up to two computers. They use it to create hashtags to trends and various other things. And this is a perfect example of using people, or they might just be all paid to tweet set information. Either way, it's not genuine and someone is picking up that tab. So let's talk about some of the stories that have come out, and this is where I believe media games are being played. Firstly, I'd already told you guys about the walkabout. The walkabout that happened in Windsor, where Catherine and William, the Prince and Princess of Wales, had met and surprised the crowds with Harry and Meghan. It has been reported by several people across social media, reliable sources, that they had arranged to do their own private walkabout with a US network ready film crew there, and William and Catherine reportedly headed them off at the pass because they didn't want it to become the Harry and Meghan show, or a spectacle, as Meghan would say. Next up, we have got a picture, and I refuse to post it and talk about it in other videos because it is a very personal picture. But the body language guy has done a video about this, and I have screenshotted this off of his video. It's only 13 minutes long, but it's definitely worth a watch. But basically, Meghan and Harry photobombed King Charles at a very, very insensitive moment. Now, the picture is here. It's on Getty Images, available to purchase. Now, I've known a photographer that's worked for Getty Images, and they do not accept photographs that have been photoshopped. They do not accept images that have been manipulated by using anything like Photoshop. So whilst Harry and Meghan do look like that they have been put onto this picture, it's more to do with the fact that the photographer pretty much used the Hubble telescope to take this very, very personal and private shot. You can see from the distance here, he must have had one hell of a long range lens. No matter how powerful that lens is, it has obviously made the image very, very snowy. It was dark, it was done at night. Now, the concerning thing is here is actually more of a security concern, because if a photographer can get that shot, so could a sniper, God forbid. But the fact that Harry and Meghan look like that they have been photoshopped in there, I don't believe that for a second. I believe that they knew where the photographer would be, whether they informed the photographer, whether they got a notification from the photographer to get in place. But at the moment, Charles was bowing his head, and it was to do with the arrival of Her Majesty the Queen when her coffin had arrived at Buckingham Palace. This was a moment when the royal family said, please leave us alone to grieve, and Harry and Meghan appear at the perfect moment staring at the camera. So that tells me that they were aware of it. And that aside, guess who was the first person to post this picture? Omid Scobie. So how was it this photographer managed to take such an incredibly long range shot, but then the fact that it's got into Omid Scobie's hands before it got into anyone else's? Now, while we're on the subject of Omid, let's talk about the clanger that he did on TV. Now, this one was a corker. Omid turned round and said that the Queen's final journey from Balmoral, she'll be transported on one of the royal trains and taken over to the UK. This is hilarious for two reasons. Firstly, Scotland is part of the UK, hence called the United Kingdom. Secondly, there is only one royal train. There are not multiple trains. And thirdly, the Queen's coffin did not travel by train. It was transported by the Royal Air Force. So for Omid to have been given this information and to be very quick to speak about it like he had an exclusive on TV, it makes you wonder where he got that from. Many believe that the aides or indeed members of the royal family had fed this information to Harry and Meghan because they can't be trusted due to the number of leaks in the media, and perhaps that they maybe twisted the truth a little bit to see how quickly that it would actually be leaked. And of course, Omid Scobie straight away. This might be why we saw the royal family looking less and less friendly towards the couple the longer that they stayed, because there might have been a number of little booby traps that were set and Harry and Meghan walked straight into it. Now, in another Omid tweet, there was the scandal that Harry and Meghan humiliated because they were uninvited to attend a historical state reception. Yes, this made headlines all around the world. The cruel royals doing this, the humiliation. Harry and Meghan only found out that they were uninvited when they read the media reports, which they don't read. Now, the fact that Omid had posted this, initially when the state reception was announced, it had said in the newspapers, actual real newspapers, that Charles was going to be hosting diplomats and world leaders, and only working senior members of the royal family would be in attendance. So this was made very clear. But Omid released his little tweet where he said that senior royals, including Harry and Meghan, will be there, knowing, and this is what I believe, the hoo-ha it will cause. And it did, because the moment that the palace then turned around and said, well, this isn't true, of course they're not coming, they're not working royals. Oh, the unfairness of it all, the drama started. They are being cruelly maligned. We even had one of Harry and Meghan's friends who piped up, naturally unidentified, to say how bonkers it was. All of these world leaders were there to pay their respects to Queen Elizabeth. Well, they had been paying their respects to Queen Elizabeth. They weren't uninvited from the funeral. They have been included in everything that the rest of the members of the royal family have. They are not world leaders. Harry and Meghan might market themselves as world leaders, but as I said before, those two couldn't lead each other round a piss-up in a pub. One big thing with a lot of these sob stories that are coming out about the unfair treatment of Harry and Meghan is they resigned in 2020. It's now 2022. They were given a year by the Queen to change their mind. They were given the rules at the Sandringham summit, which they did actually between that year that the Queen gave them rather gracefully to change their minds. They broke so many things that they were supposed to uphold the honours and the values of the royal family. No, they didn't. They were literally grabbing at anyone that was offering them a paycheck. Even to the point now we're still waiting for their historical documentary on their love story. Now, again, I believe this was deliberately done by Omid to stir it up, because the palace was then going to turn around and say they're not invited. Either that, or it was done as a bulldozer tactic, you know, like these celebrities, they just turn up at the gate at these parties and then just like, you know, well, you know who I am, you know, try and turn us away, the drama that would actually cause. So I don't know how much of it was just to obviously reinforce their victim narrative about how they were left out of things, or whether it was done so the royal family, just to keep the peace, yet again would invite them in. Again with the, it's so unfair, William and Catherine got to go, Prince Charles shouldn't treat his children differently. Harry is edging towards 40 years old. He is a grown man. Both William and Harry are grown men with families of their own. Prince William is also now the Prince of Wales. His wife, Catherine, or as the newspapers irritatingly still call her, Kate Middleton, she is now the Princess of Wales. They are both senior royals. They are both heirs to the throne. Harry and Meghan are not, and they are not senior royals. They quit because they didn't like the job. They didn't want to do the work, and we know the rest of the stories that came out with regards to how they were tortured and suffered so greatly in the full 72 days that Meghan committed to being a full-time working royal. Oh, sorry, 72 engagements, not days. So let's now move on to Harry and Meghan were refused seating at the funeral. Far as I could see, I'm pretty sure everyone else was aware, they did have seats at the funeral. They were given front row seats at Windsor. Well, that's mainly because, you know, that's how the church works, you know, all family lined up. And in this case, they were sat behind the king and the queen. So, you know, as far as publicity shots, they were behind the King of England, King Charles III, and his beloved wife, Queen Camilla. But that, again, was not good enough. Some people have said the candle was put there deliberately, and I'm like, get a grip. But this is the absurdity of people trying to defend them, that they deliberately put a candle there to block out the only black woman, and you're just like, oh, really? Give it a rest, please. But even though they were placed right behind the king and the queen, which would be central place for photographs for Netflix, Harry was seen scowling a lot of the time, and when it actually came to singing God Save the King, Harry was not really moving his mouth, and I'm not sure he sang it at all. If he did, it was through like a gritted teeth, shall we say. He was obviously very upset to do that, and again that shows you the angst and the ridiculousness of their behaviour. It's petty behaviour. So with them kicking off saying that, oh, they were maligned, they were mistreated by sitting in these seats, what did they think? Beatrice and Edo, Lady Louise, James Viscount Seven were all sat along there, the grandchildren, the non-working royals. You're there to watch the services to do with your grandmother's life, and yet he's complaining again. So he did get seating, after all, behind the king, but it wasn't good enough. Now, perhaps if Catherine and William had not have brought their children, their eldest two children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, then maybe Harry and Meghan would have been in the front row. But given the fact that the great-grandchildren were a lot closer and spent a lot more time with their great-grandmother than Harry and Meghan have ever done since they got married, I think that the second and third in line to the throne had more right to be in the front row, sat next to their parents, than what those two did. And all you can hear with Harry's face, and a lot of it, as I said in the previous video, it's just this little voice going, no fair, it's not fair, I didn't get my way. And it's showing the mentality of these storylines that are coming out. Whilst I do believe certain people are stirring the pot and Harry and Meghan are not responsible for all of the negative stories that are coming out, I do think that they have a lot more to do with it behind the scenes than what they'd ever let on. So now let's get on to one of my bugbears, the uniforms. Yes, I did do a video recently called Titles in Uniforms, and I did briefly cover it then. But I feel that I need to discuss this a little bit further because they did come out with an even crueler narrative. Harry's uniform was stripped of the Queen's initials on the eve of the vigil, when he was finally granted permission by King Charles to wear his military uniform at the Queen's vigil. Yes, the drama llamas strike again. So I want to explain a little bit here to people that aren't aware, and that is that the ER initials, which stand for Elizabeth Regina, were only given to Harry in 2018 when he became a duke. It is the insignia of an aide-de-camp. It is bestowed upon members of the British royal family who hold a military rank. So I hear, oh, but Andrew got to wear his. That is because, unlike Harry, Andrew does still hold a military rank. Despite the fact that he was stripped of everything else, Prince Andrew still holds the rank of Vice Admiral in the Navy. This is why he was allowed to wear his uniform at the vigil of the princes. And the princess, I'd like to point out. This is another thing. The newspapers were so hell-bent, and this is not Harry and Meghan's fault, so hell-bent on covering Meghan and Harry, Harry and William, that they didn't do a front page spread on one of the most historical things that has ever happened with the royal family, and that was the Princess Royal got to stand at the vigil of the princess, and then the grandchildren, more importantly the granddaughters, all got to do it the next day. This is when Harry got to wear his uniform. We had Zara, we had Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice, we had Lady Louise. This again was a historical moment. They'd never done a vigil of the grandchildren, and they had the daughters. You know, all of these people talking about feminism and modernising the monarchy, this is as modern as you can get it. But whether it was Harry complaining about it through getting people to prod the media by saying that Harry was cruelly given the humiliation of that final cipher being stripped from his uniform, it took the headlines. And that is the media's fault for reporting on it, because they fall into the trap every time. And for the media that were running these stories, stirring the pot, a simple Google search can tell you exactly what I've just said. Princess Anne did not have the cipher on her uniform. Did you see her kicking up a stink? No, you did not. Prince Harry was only given it in 2018, and actually on the uniform that he wore on his wedding day, he did not have the initials there. He didn't kick up a stink and a tantrum then. I'm guessing that the drama llama must have had the day off for the wedding. Now obviously Omid, yes, again behind stirring the pot, it's been confirmed that Harry's not allowed to wear his uniform. He had to eat his words when King Charles did give Harry that special permission. Now that permission was not granted to anyone else, and I mean anyone else, that has ever served in the armed forces. So Harry was given special treatment and it still wasn't good enough. There still had to be a complaint. And the fact is that it was so quickly done where it was stirring the pot that Harry was stripped of this and ripped of that. Poor Harry was humiliated. And as I said, it is just a simple case of, well, this is standard, this is protocol. And I'll tell you another thing that is protocol. Harry resigned in 2020. As I said a few minutes ago, he was given a year's grace by Her Majesty the Queen to change his mind. They were told at the Sandringham Summit everything that they stood to lose, but they still went ahead with it. They still wanted to leave and become civilians in the United States. So for Harry now to be coming back and complaining like this is something new, he knew this when he quit. There is no one in the world that would have a job, as far as I'm aware, and they would quit, hand in their notice, and doesn't have to hand back the laptop, the company car, the salary stops getting paid. Oh, we're going to stop your pension as well. Oh no, grab my pearls. It is standard protocol for every single normal person that walks this earth. If you leave your job, you lose the perks. But again, it's like Harry is this super duper privileged person. And I've seen so many people talk about how Harry is still that 11-year-old boy that walked behind his mother's coffin. William was with him too. William went through exactly the same. Harry is not being maligned, he is not being treated unfairly. Harry is being treated like everyone else. So you can see where I believe that the games have never really stopped and they are going to continue, thus further proven by the usual suspects. We've got Tyler Perry, a mate of Oprah. You know, when he did the tour of his home, there was a copy of Finding Freedom there, nicely placed, a little bit of advertising. What's a bit of business amongst friends? And obviously he let Harry and Meghan go over there. He's been talking about how they were victims. You know, this is literally days after the Queen's state funeral. And then you have got, obviously, the two women, Oprah and Gayle, who do not involve themselves in other people's family business, have quickly been talking about the fact that despite Harry and Meghan's best efforts, no peace deal had yet been reached. But of course, Harry and Meghan are not leaking to Gayle. Really, Gayle? I'm pretty sure that we're still waiting on those many receipts that she once promised the public after Harry and Meghan's bombshell interview with Oprah. So that's it for me, guys. Obviously, the media games are not going to stop anytime soon, and I will be back with you as soon as possible. Take care for now. Have a nice weekend.
If you would like to buy me a coffee, please go to my About page and click the link. Love, Taz.